You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring will be here soon, so if buying a new home is on your to-do list, right now is the time to call Quicken Loans. Learn about which mortgage options make sense for you and get a jump on your competition. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Hi, welcome to this Subway ad for the new Sesame Ginger Glazed Chicken Signature Wrap. How would you like it?
I'll take a...
Sports announcer at home?
Yeah, how'd you...
We just know.
My wife picks up the new Signature Wrap. It's got double the rotisserie-style chicken mix with a sesame ginger glaze. She appears annoyed at me, but she shrugs it off. Those sweet and savory flavors are calling her name. She lifts the wrap and she takes the bite! Incredible! And now she's closing the door on my... Subway, make it what you want.
Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat basement, average 6-inch sub.
I'm little teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
It's the refreshingly non-political podcast about everything else.
I'm Alan Ray, and I do this for free. It must be Friday night. It is. The refreshingly non-political podcast about everything else. I'm your humble host, Alan Ray, coming to you from a very cold, very snowy southeastern Michigan. In Gadsden Studios, where it's warm and cozy. I've got a nice cup of hot tea. We will endure. I love the little repeating guitar riff at the end of this song. Sorry about that. Where was I? Yeah, big show for you tonight. We're going to explain a few things. We're going to talk about a few things. Might even get a little bit preachy. I don't know. Can we do it without discussing politics? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Yeah, I watched it go on the way home from work last night. Snowing like crazy, of course, unplowed roads. One of the reasons that I bought a giant four-wheel drive truck is because of last night. Driving home and snow, 3-4 inches piled up, but, roads, when it was a heavy, slushy snow, and it was just caking up on the roads, and the more people would drive on it, the more deteriorated the roads would get. I had my scanner app going on my phone. Of course, it was playing over the speakers in the truck, and it sounded like just the area sheriffs and the area police and EMS were just going crazy last night. I would have traded their jobs for anything in the world. No, they can have them. Sorry. Anyways, and it was waffling between 33, 34 degrees. I mean, I would look at my temperature reading and say 33, 32, jump up to 34, and just exactly in, correlation with those temps, it would go from snow to like a freezing rain to rain and then back to snow as those temps would go up and down. We were right at the cusp. So it was a heavy snow, and heavy snow like that when you're driving in it, you have to be really careful. I mean, even with a four-wheel drive, if that slush sucks you in, it'll take you anywhere it wants to take you. It doesn't matter. Plus, there was kind of a layer of slick ice underneath it because when it first started, it was coming down with almost like an icy consistency. So, yeah, it was rough last night. It was really, really rough. And, of course, this morning when you wake up, it's 18 degrees, and it's not warming up. It's getting worse. Now it's 16 degrees. Why? Because of the polar vortex. Now, a couple of years ago, we had a rash of what they call, it's polar vortex, and that's all you heard. It was a buzzword in the news. Polar vortex is nothing new. The polar vortex exists, and it always has existed. And, I want to explain this to you because it happens a couple times in Michigan. It happens off and on. A lot of times, in 1977, 1982, 85, 1980, 89 was the worst. It was really bad. But what happens is this, and I looked at, weather.gov and a couple of things. They explain it. It says a polar vortex is a large area of low pressure and cold air surrounding both of the Earth's poles, the North and South Pole. It always exists near the poles, but weakens in the summer and strengthens in the winter. The term vortex refers to the counterclockwise flow of air that helps keep the colder air near the poles. In other words, as long as this thing's spinning and as long as it's nice and strong, it keeps that air way up there. Many times, it helps keep the cold air near the poles, but many times during the winter in the northern hemisphere, the polar vortex will expand and send this cold air southward with the jet stream, which is, where we are now. This occurs fairly regularly during wintertime and is often associated with large outbreaks of Arctic air in the United States. The one that occurred in January 2014 is similar to many other cold outbreaks that have occurred in the past, in the years I just told you, 77, 82, 85, 89. 2014 was wicked. I mean, it just seemed like that thing just went nuts, dropped all this cold air down here, and we just had this repeating cycle starting the second, third week in December of weather in the teens. It was nuts. And I remember going ice fishing and trying to drill through the ice, and there was like 18 inches of ice. I dug 2 holes and went, oh my gosh, that's it. I'm done. I mean, my arms were so tired. But yeah, that's what's going on right now. Going to be, if you're in the northern area, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, places like that, this polar vortex is dipping down, and it's just going to kick our butts. So, in short, there's no cause to be alarmed when you hear about a polar vortex. I mean, it's nothing that happens on the surface of the Earth. This is something that happens tens of thousands of feet in the air. And this counterclockwise swirling, when it gets bigger, it just shoots all this cold air down towards us. And you get what we've got coming up this week. Now, on either end of that polar vortex, usually, I have experienced that you get a good snowstorm. We had snow last night. We got 3 or 4 good inches out there. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I've seen much worse. But we have 3 or 4 more supposed to hit Monday. So this is the time of year that I always say I hate the most. I question my own sanity, and I wonder, why the heck do I live in a state that, breathing the air outside can kill you? And yes, polar vortex, when those things hit, they will drop temperatures to what I call the hate zone. I'm talking 10 degrees, 0 degree wind chill factor, sometimes negative 10 degrees with a negative 20, negative 30, negative 40 degree wind chill factor. And for those of you that, that aren't familiar with wind chill factors, it's basically what it feels like outside. It can be 10 degrees outside and the wind whipping make it feel like it's 20 below zero. And your bones creak. The older I get, the worse I just react to it. My bones creak. I don't feel good. I'm just like, ugh. I would rather just hide inside with a cup of hot tea and eat soup for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and just stay warm. That's all you want to do. But friendly reminder, and if you listen to my show on Sunday nights, Circumspice, the right side of Michigan, I went off on a nut because there was a family in Michigan. They dropped their daughter off and they were on the way home. And we got these 2 tracks up north. They're called 2 tracks. They're not even roads. They're exactly what they sound like. They're 2 tracks that go through the middle of woods that, connect a road to another or go back to houses or something like that. And this family got on a 2 track and they're dirt, and they're very remote. You can't see them from the road. In fact, if you don't know what you're looking for, a lot of times you can drive right past them. I've been on several of them. And they got off on a 2 track trying to take a shortcut somewhere or something, and they ended up hitting a rock and getting their vehicle stuck, ended up freezing to death. A man, a woman, and a small baby. Very, very sad. And, of course, I went off on a nut saying, look, it's winter. If you don't have the proper stuff in your car, and you don't have to be a prepper. You don't have to be some militant. They want to paint people like this, but you don't have to be that. You just have to have common sense. If you don't have preparations in your car for winter weather and even summer weather, all weather, you should always have an emergency bag in your car. If you don't have them, well, then you're not very intelligent. You're not thinking very intelligently. Shouldn't say you're not very intelligent because I know doctors that don't do this. You have to have things in your vehicle to survive. You don't know when you're going to. I was listening to people last night sliding off the roads into ditches, hitting trees, doing all this stuff. And it was taking 45 minutes to 2 hours for tow trucks to get there. They were trying to get, the police were trying to get to all these places. They had all hands in the cook out there, on duty last night, and they were still having problems getting to people within an hour or two. Well, that could mean the difference between you barely surviving and you surviving comfortably. Blankets in your vehicle. And it don't cost much to put blankets in your vehicle. Yeah, I've got I've got a couple of moving blankets in my vehicle. Those things you go down to Harbor Freight, spend a couple bucks, get some moving blankets. Those aren't bad. Those will do. They're nice, thick. They're a kind of wool. They'll protect you. They'll keep you warm. I also have a sleeping bag that basically I use as a seat cover in the back seat because my dog has to go everywhere I go. And it's just really easy because it's kind of a, polyester or whatever kind of covering that I can just sweep off and it's really easy. But that's a legit sleeping bag that if I break down or something like that, I could wrap up in. Hand warmers, those Rip Pack hand warmers, all that stuff. And yes, for those of you that listen to all my shows, I'm going to continue to preach this stuff, okay? Spare boots, spare hat, spare gloves. I can't get it out there enough. This is the time of year where this stuff is absolutely necessary. Flashlights with the batteries taken out and stored separately so you can put them in when you need them. Emergency candles and a tin can. You can make a pretty adequate little heater, and you have to do it very, very, very carefully inside of a vehicle with an emergency candle and a tin can on your dashboard. But you have to be really, really careful. I can't explain that, tell you that enough. So, yeah, polar vortexes, they're hitting. It's wicked. It's crazy. And, the next couple of weeks is the time of year that just, kill me most. But what I do is when it starts warming up just a little bit, this is the time of year that I hit the ice. I go ice fishing. I'm not courageous as I used to be, okay? Used to be, it's like, oh, there's an inch of ice, I'm going ice fishing. No. I want 8 inches of ice underneath me. I want something solid. I want to be able to go out there, spend all day, and not even have to think about what happens if the ice breaks through. So, yeah, this is the time of year I'll be dragging out the portable ice shanty that I call Ice Station Zebra, going out there, drilling a hole in the ice, and spending a day just with my feet kicked up, a couple of fishing poles in little holes and catching little fishies, maybe even grilling one up. I've got a heater that you can kick all the way back, and it turns into kind of you can put a frying pan on top of it, and it makes a really good little stove. So, yeah, I can put soup, or I could, if I get lucky and catch a fish, I can skin her right there, gut her right there, throw it on there, and have a little bite. That's about the only thing this time of year is really good for. Just throwing that out there. So, big show for you tonight. Got a lot to talk about. Man, where do I start? Do I get preachy first, or do I not? Yeah, let's get preachy first. Let's talk about your privacy. Now, I don't care what side of the aisle of politics you're on. Privacy is a big deal. You need to be concerned about your privacy. And sometimes companies come along and things come along and technology comes along, and I look at it and go, I don't know if I would do that or not. Those DNA places are one of them. Send us your DNA and we'll analyze it and tell you what your ancestors were. Send us your DNA and we'll tell you if you're at risk for a disease. And I'm going, you probably, maybe don't do that. Well, people will call you paranoid. People will call you a conspiracy theorist, whatever they want to call you. That's fine. But what they don't think about is a few years down the road, what happens? That's just like with the big tech thing we're seeing right now. Everybody's going, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? Well, because what they collect about you, the data they collect about you, even if their purpose, even if their intent is legit, if it's on the up and up, if they don't mean any harm to anybody, they're just doing it and saying, well, we're never going to share it. You don't know when that company is going to change hands or redo their policies and say, well, that's how we used to do it. Now we are sharing your data. And that I ran across this disturbing article in Vice. It says on Thursday, consumer genetic testing company 23andMe, which is very popular, announced it would merge with VG Acquisition Corp, a special purpose acquisition corporation under the umbrella of Richard Branson's Virgin Group. Virgin Group is a corporate behemoth that spans continents and industrial sectors as diverse as healthcare, travel, real estate, telecoms. The merger deal values the company outstanding shares at $3.5 billion, according to a press release, and will leave it with a projected $900 million in cash to spend on operations and expansion, as well as allowing it to go public. Now, what's this mean? An investor presentation viewed by Motherboard fleshes out Virgin's investment thesis for 23andMe, as well as future targets and projects. The slide presentation notes that 23andMe is disrupting the healthcare experience and mentions its vast proprietary data set of DNA that will allow it to unlock revenue streams across digital health, therapeutics, and more. The company estimates it has nearly 11 million genotyped customers, well over 4 billion phenotypic data points, developing 30 therapeutic programs. In other words, Richard Branson has your DNA, and he's going to use it in a way that 23andMe did not advertise that they were going to use your DNA. The presentation also takes note of the 23andMe's Ancestry service, whose accuracy has been called into question, and its personalized genetic insights that look for specific genes that might increase your risk factor for a disease. Some of those tests have also been accused of giving customers a false sense of security. Now, the slides that they showed make clear that 23andMe's core value proposition as a company is to collect as much genetic information as possible and then to analyze it and sell that data in some fashion. There you go. whether it be to back users as fun facts or health information via subscription services, to big pharma, or indeed to use it as a play for, say, a merger with Virgin Company. This should be a reminder that 23andMe is a big data company masquerading as a genetics company. 23andMe regularly insists that this data is de-identified and shares only aggregate to minimize the risk of re-identification. That's crap. You know that's crap. You know in your heart that that's crap. They know who you are. Your name is pinned to that DNA. Your identity is pinned to that DNA. And now it may be going places you don't want it to go. Now, even if 23andMe and its databases are now under the Virgin umbrella, it's not clear if Virgin will actually make use of 23andMe's data trove in any of its many diverse operations. It's worth noting, though, that in 2018, the company received a $300 million investment from GlaxoSmithKline and gave the pharmaceutical giant access to its DNA data to fuel drug discovery in a deal that set off privacy klaxons. This is what I'm talking about. Okay? It's not the first time that a genetics company and its database have ended up in unexpected hands. Last year, private equity firm Blackstone purchased Ancestry from a group of other firms for $4.7 billion. At the time, Blackstone said it will not have access to people's genetic data. Regardless, the slides make clear that 23andMe's gambit is collecting as much genetic information as possible and then selling that data in some fashion, whether it be back to users. So basically what they're doing is they are going to take your data and use it, sell it, make money off of it, make money off of you, your very existence. And it's going to end up in places that you may not want it to end up. Now, I don't care that they say it's going to be detached from your identity. It's attached to your identity. One way or another, it's attached. And if you, and quite honestly, this is what I'm talking about right here. Let me just throw this scenario out here. Say your DNA is in, this information. It's sold to big pharma. It's sold to insurance companies. Ooh, insurance companies. That insurance company, yes, it does have your DNA and it does have your name attached, your identity attached to that DNA. You apply for life insurance. It brings up your name. And I don't care what 23andMe says. I don't care what these people say. Your digital identity is attached to this data. They can and will find you. And they look at this data and go, well, according to our records, you are a prime candidate for cancer. So, yeah, no. Your price for your insurance is going to be this. And it's like 10 times more than everybody else's. Why? Because you're a high risk. You want to, let's say, apply for or you want to buy a weapon. And I'm not going to get into the debate about your Second Amendment rights. I'm just saying, you want to apply for a weapon. They bring up your data and say, well, there is a history of insanity that runs in your family. There's a history of bipolar disorder. Even though you've never had an inkling of anything wrong, there's a history of schizophrenia. There's a history of whatever. Sorry, we're going to turn you down. Don't think it'll happen? Stick around. Find out. This is why I've been telling people all along. Careful what you do. These companies, I mean, and your digital DNA is just as bad. And this is something I won't go into. You listen to Cyber Wars on Monday nights, and Ordy and Lou go into this in depth. Your information is out there. It's out there. A lot of it's on the dark web. Whether it's used or not, it's like playing the lottery. And really, honestly, I've started to clamp down on a lot of things that I do. Is it too late? Probably. I mean, I've been in the public eye since I was probably 13, 15 years old. So everybody in this area at least knows everything about me. Everybody online, I've had no secrets. I pretty much act online like I do in private. And whether that falls into the wrong hands or not, well, it remains to be seen. It can be scary. Lately, I've started clamping down on it. like Facebook. Facebook is basically malware. It's one of the worst things in the world, I think. Twitter's not too far behind it. Facebook has been banned to one piece of technology in my house. It is basically a tablet, a cheap Amazon tablet that sits on my desk that gets used to watch videos and maybe, I'll check Facebook to make sure all my family's still alive. If I have some kind of a gig or a show, I'm a musician, I will put that on there, which during this lockdown, during this pandemic, that's not happening. That's it. It's banned from all my other technology. They're too intrusive. They collect too much data. Quite honestly, they should be paying people for what they sell. But that's not going to happen. So anyways, careful with your technology. Careful what you commit to. You send your DNA to places like this, even though they had all the greatest intentions in mind, when it gets sold, you could be screwed. Now, let's talk about other things. Before we go to the break, this is kind of a good one. This kind of hits close to home because I studied this in college a little bit. Dementia, Alzheimer's. There was a point in time where we thought that my dad might be developing Alzheimer's. It turned out not to be. It turned out to be something completely different that was basically treatable through surgery and rehab. But at the time, Alzheimer's became very important, and it still is very important. It's a very big problem. And to detect it early enough, we're finding out, is to be able to basically keep people active mentally, keep people doing things to stave off the disease as long as they can. We're on the brink of figuring out how to cure Alzheimer's. And I think this is a big step towards that. There is now a blood test, a simple blood test that detects Alzheimer's. Where did we get this from? Scientific America. When a patient complains of forgetfulness, a neurologist might not know immediately whether it results from normal aging, reduced blood flow to the brain, or more ominously, Alzheimer's disease. It could also be a pituitary gland tumor and all kinds of other things. I can tell you that right up front. For much of the past century, a definitive Alzheimer's diagnosis could only be made during an autopsy. Brain imaging and spinal fluid tests now make it possible to spot the disease in patients even before the initial symptoms appear. But these invasive tests are very expensive and generally limited to research settings that are not part of the routine care for millions of people suffering from the most common neurodegenerative disorder. An era in which Alzheimer's diagnosis can begin in a doctor's office is now arriving. Advances in technologies to detect early signs of disease from a blood sample are helping doctors to identify the memory-robbing disorder more accurately and to screen participants more quickly for trials of potential treatments. Last fall, a blood test developed by C2N Diagnostics in St. Louis, Missouri, became available to most of the U.S. as a routine lab test. Regulated under the Clinical Laboratory Improvement Amendments Program, it has also received a CE mark as diagnostic medical device in the European Union, indicating it has met safety, health, and environmental protection standards for the region. Basically what it is they take your blood and it uses an analytic technique known as mass spectrometry to detect specific types of beta amyloids, a protein fragment that is a pathological hallmark of Alzheimer's. Now, beta amyloid proteins accumulate and form plaques visible on the brain. So, brain scans, basically, before even anybody has memory problems or any of the signs, this thing can detect them. As plaques build up in the brain, levels of beta amyloid decline in the surrounding fluid. Such changes can be measured in spinal fluid samples and now in blood, where beta amyloid concentrations are significantly lower. Great news. Great news. It's a horrible disease. And the thing about it is a lot of times in Alzheimer's, I mean, it's just a prolonged agony. For the patient themselves, it's not as bad because they just don't know. They don't remember. For the loved ones surrounding the patient, it's horrible. It can just be life-destroying watching a loved one go through this. Now, the difference between this blood sample test and, say, a PET brain imaging or something like that, this test total cost is $1,250. Now, it's not currently covered by insurance, but I got a feeling that'll change because it's a heck of a lot more effective than $5,000, which a PET scan costs. So these are good. This is good. This is the direction that medicines need to move in. That's a great advancement, and I think it's just taking another step forward to ending this horrible wasting disease called Alzheimer's. We're at the bottom of the hour already. When we come back, we're going to look at more medicine. We're going to look at monkeys. And we're going to look at Chucky. And one of my favorite things, new radio technology. Don't go away. Be right back.
Listen now and don't forget, if you go for that solid jive, you can always keep the dream alive. Palin with Al.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq, Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
Texas Department of Public Safety has apologized after mistakenly issuing an Amber Alert that said the killer doll Chucky, featured in the 1988 horror film Child's Play, was a suspect in the kidnapping of his 5-year-old son, Glenn Ray, who was featured in the seat of Chucky. The emergency alert described Chucky as a 3-foot 1-inch tall doll wearing blue denim overalls with multicolored striped long-sleeve shirt, wielding a huge kitchen knife. The alert was mistakenly sent out 3 times last week to an Amber Alert subscribers. The agency said it was a test malfunction. Right.
There's something wrong with us. Something very, very wrong with us.
Can you imagine getting that Amber Alert? Sorry, I found that pretty humorous. And if I ever got an Amber Alert like that, it might just send me over the edge. I don't know. So those of you that know me that know that I've been studying, getting ready. In fact, this coming Tuesday, I take my my technician license test, ham radio test. I'm ready. I've got an app that basically just keeps drawing out questions. When you test for ham radio licenses, there is this pool of questions that they just randomly pull 35 questions out of and just throw it in front of you and say, here you go, take the test. Well, I've got this app that basically gives you these questions. I mean, every time you bring the app up and say go, it'll just start throwing questions at you. Question after question after question. And I keep getting them more and more and more. In fact, I hardly ever get any of them wrong now. There's also a site, what is that? AA9PW, I think, is .com or .net is the site that you can actually take practice tests that are just like, I mean, they're basically the real live tests. The guy just, when he says that, I've seen a video by him, he says, when I give people the test, when they come see me, I just hit this test and I print it out, throw it in front of them. So these are the actual tests you take. I keep getting 100% on. So I'm ready. And 35 questions, you can miss 7 of them and still pass. So yeah, I'm completely ready. So radio is interesting to me. And some of the technology behind it is interesting to me. So when I found this article in phys.org, phys.org, it kind of piqued my interest. It says a new quantum sensor can analyze the full spectrum of radio frequency and real-world signals, unleashing new potential for soldiers' communications, spectrum awareness, and electronic warfare. Army researchers built the quantum sensor, which can sample the radio frequency spectrum from 0 frequency to up to 20 gigahertz and detect AM, FM, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and other communication signals. The Rydberg sensor uses laser beams to create highly excited Rydberg atoms directly above a microwave circuit to boost and hone in on the portions of the spectrum being measured. The Rydberg atoms are sensitive to the circuit's voltage, enabling the device to be used as sensitive probe for the wide range of signals in the RF spectrum. All previous demonstrations of the Rydberg atomic sensors have only been able to sense a small and specific region of the RF spectrum, but our sensors now operates continuously over a wide frequency range for the first time, said Dr. Kevin Cox, a researcher at the U.S. Army Combat Capabilities Development Command, known as DEVCOM, Army Research Laboratory. This is a really important step towards proving that quantum sensors can provide new and dominant set of capabilities for our soldiers who are operating in an increasingly complex electromagnetic battle space. Electromagnetic battle space, when you hear electromagnetic, that's wavelength. Wavelengths are, your radio. When you pick up radio, that's electromagnetic frequency. So the Rydberg Spectrum Analyzer has the potential to surpass fundamental limitations of traditional electronics in sensitivity, bandwidth, and frequency range. Because of this, the lab's Rydberg Spectrum Analyzer and other quantum sensors have the potential to unlock a new frontier of Army sensors for spectrum awareness, electronic warfare, sensing and communications, and part of the Army's modernization strategy. Now, why am I excited about this? Because this is in the Army right now. And for all you history buffs, you know that things that are in the Army, things that are in the military, eventually filter down to private life. And if they're already coming out and saying, hey, we got these sensors like these can be used in modern radio. And I'm talking, shortwave, ham, stuff like that. Even really in AM, FM, whatever radio you want. It could improve the getting Wi-Fi signals, you name it. Anything that's in the radio frequency. Now, you don't think about radio frequency a lot, but it's all around you. I mean, it goes from anything from, the lowest of radio waves that they use to communicate with submarines and stuff like that, up to the highest 20 gigahertz, where they use to cell phone signals, there's all this in between, radar signals. Your cell phone is basically a radio. That's what it is. It just transmits on a weird frequency and it's scrambled. So this has the potential, this sensor that they're coming out with has the potential to revolutionize the selectivity of radios. And if you're a software-defined radio user or anything like that, it's kind of hard to drill in on certain frequencies. This can detect them, point them out, and once it gets into the public circuit, I'm sure that these brainiacs and nerds that are in the ham radio fields, and these guys are incredible, they do some incredible things, will be able to use this to improve detection of certain frequencies, certain packet information, stuff like that. This is pretty exciting news. Yes, the Army will be able to use it to protect our soldiers. They'll also probably be able to use it to detect cell phone cell phone signals coming out of mountains and places like that where they're looking for bad people so they can get to them. Kind of neat stuff. I'm excited about that. What else we got going on here? Oh, can exercise make you more creative? Well, there's some scientific evidence that points to maybe. Where's this article from? This is from the New York Times. Yeah, New York Times. That's what I meant to say. If you often exercise, there's a good chance you also tend to be more creative, according to an interesting new study of the links between physical activity and imagination. Science already offers plenty of evidence that physical activity influences how we think. Many studies in people and animals show that our brains change in response to physical activity, in part because during exercise, we marinate our brains with extra blood, oxygen, and nutrients. We feed our brains when you're exercising. In rodent studies, animals that regularly exercise produce far more new brain cells than their sedentary counterparts and perform better on thinking tests, even if they are elderly. But creativity is one of the most abstract of thinking skills and difficult to quantify, and its relationship with exercise has never been really clear. A few past studies have found intriguing relationships between moving and originality. One notable in 2012, for instance. Researchers asked some of the volunteers to move their arms loosely and fluidly through space, tracing the lines of a looping, curving line drawing, and scientists had shown them, while another group arm aped a straighter, more angular drawing. After each session, the researchers urged the volunteers to dream up of novel, unexpected uses for ordinary newspaper and found that those who had moved fluidly, almost as if they were dancing, came up with more original ideas than those whose movements had been rigid. So, those and other studies of movement and creativity looked in the short-term effects of physical activity under tightly controlled conditions. They didn't examine the potential linkages, if there were any, between everyday activities like going for a walk and the workings of our imagination. So this new study, which was published in Scientific Reports, researchers at the University of Graz in Austria decided to track the normal activities of a group of average adults and also measure their creativity to see whether and how the two might align. The scientists wondered, too, about happiness. Some past research had speculated that good mood might be the intermediary linking between activity and creativity. According to that idea, moving makes people happier, and their good cheer in turn makes them more creative. In that scenario, moving does not directly affect creative thinking. To learn more, the researchers gathered 79 healthy adults, gave them activity trackers for 5 days, and then asked them to visit the lab and let their imaginations soar. Conceiving new uses for car tires and umbrellas and finishing partial drawings. The researchers then rated their output on its originality and other measures. Finally, the science cross-checked the data using a complex form of statistical analysis that incorporates findings from related earlier research and weighs how much of the role a potential mediator plays. In this case, the researchers wondered, did being happy relate closely both to how much people moved and their creativity, meaning it linked the two? The answer, the researchers concluded, was no. The most active of volunteers proved to also be the most creative, especially if they often walked or otherwise exercised moderately. Active people also tend to be happy people, although their moods were highest if they engaged in relatively vigorous activities like jogging or playing sports rather than moderate ones like walking or, something like that. But the correlations between activity, creativity, and moods were slight. People could walk often and be quite creative, but not especially happy, suggesting that it was not improved moods that most influenced creativity. It was moving. So being happy doesn't make you creative. Moving, exercising more made you creative. The findings point to an association between creativity and physical activity in everyday life, says Christian Rominger, a professor of psychology at the University of Graz and the study's lead author. The study was associational, though, meaning it looked at a brief moment in people's lives. It did not involve a randomized experience and cannot tell us if being more active directly causes us to be more creative, only that activity and creativity are linked. So there is a link there. I can tell you, for one, that when I'm exercising, when I'm moving and shaking, and during the summer when I'm running more and doing more things, I tend to think more, especially when I am running. Like, you really want to think, you really want to concentrate, practice for a half marathon. 2 hours of nothing but beating your feet on the ground, your brain tends to just okay, you got to pacify yourself. You start thinking. So there you have it. Kind of a bizarre thing. This is monkey business in its most definite form right here. Using thermal imaging, researchers were able to non-invasively measure temperature changes in the faces of marmoset monkeys to quantify subtle emotional responses. Marmoset monkeys eavesdrop, and they found out and they understand conversations between other marmosets. We were able to use this technique to show that the marmosets did not perceive the vocal interactions between conspecifics as the mere sum of the single-cell elements, but rather perceived them holistically as a conversation, says the first author, Rahul Brugger, PhD candidate of the Department of Anthropology. An animal experiencing an increase in emotional arousal will show a drop in facial surface temperature, especially in the most exposed regions, namely the nose. Measuring the emitted infrared radiation by means of thermography makes it possible to record these changes. For their study, the researchers used playbacks of vocal exchanges between marmosets as well as calls of individual animals who were not involved in an interaction. They played the corresponding playbacks from a hidden loudspeaker and used thermography to measure the monkeys' reactions to the various stimulations. This showed that the response to call interactions was significantly different than the response to individual calls. Marmoset monkeys are thus able to distinguish a dialogue among conspecifics from a pure monologue. In other words, marmosets can basically judge you. Well, at least other marmosets. Judgy little monkeys. Yes. They will actually look at the conversation, hear conversations from other marmosets, and will judge whether they're important enough to be concerned about and what's going on. Kind of neat stuff. Finally, lastly, but not leastly, more than a third suffer COVID vaccine side effects, and reactions are more likely if you have had the virus already. Most of the side effects with the first doses were mild and included pain or swelling. This is from the Evening Standard. The data from the study suggests that people who have previously had COVID-19 are almost twice as likely to experience one or more mild whole-body systematic side effects compared to those who have not had the virus. According to the latest data from the ZooCovid Symptom Study app, the most common mild whole-body side effects were fatigue, headache, and chills. Fatigue 9%, headache 8%, and chills or shivers 4%. Tim Spector, the lead scientist on the study and professor of genetic epidemiology, I can't say that word, at King's College London, said, "This data set is a unique look at those who have been vaccinated in the real world outside of trials, and so far the post-vaccine effects we see are mild and in the minority of people. It's interesting to see that those with previous COVID are more likely to experience these mild after effects than naive subjects, in other words, subjects that have never had COVID. This could be good news, as a larger response like this suggests that those getting a first dose after having had COVID are generating a stronger immune reaction and may get greater protection from just a single shot of the vaccine. Most mild whole body side effects appeared in the first 2 days after the vaccination. Only 3% of the people have any after effects beyond 3 days. The figures, based on a subsample of almost 40,000 vaccine doses, suggest that 37% of the people experienced some local side effects after the first dose and 45% after the second. While 14% of the people reported at least one whole body side effect within 7 days from the first dose, compared to 22% of the suspects after the second dose, I should say patients, possibly indicating a stronger immune response after the second dose. Now, I'm kind of skeptical. First of all, you know, I don't make this very public, but I'm not afraid to say it. I'm holding off on getting the vaccine. I'm not anti-vax, don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-vaccine at all. I just want more proof. I'm not a big fan of going out and getting something stuck in my arm that hasn't been around for a year or two. Hasn't had a lot of long-range clinical trial tests. They kind of rush this through. And does it work? I don't know. If it really truly worked, and this is the argument that I have, and I know people will roll their eyes and go, "Oh, you're an anti-masker." No, I'm not. If this vaccine really does work right, the way it should, when I get that shot in my arm, the mask comes off permanently, the social distancing is done permanently, I'm done. If you can't guarantee me that, well, then I'm going to wait around a little bit and see exactly what this supposed vaccine does. That's what I want to know. I'm interested in the science behind it. Now, it's not really a vaccine by all real, you know, if you really get down to the bare brass tacks of it. It's actually something that modifies your body to identify and fight the virus. It's not the virus itself bumping up your immune system. So it's a total new technology. We're dealing with a brand new technology, a brand new vaccine, and excuse me just a little bit, but I'm going to wait a little bit. Not only that, but I have what they call a pretty healthy immune system. I've been exposed to this virus 10, 15, 20 times. I worked on buses, actually helped sanitize buses and public transportation at the very peak when everybody was dropping the first time of this thing. I was scrubbing out buses voluntarily. They couldn't find anybody to do it because everybody was terrified. Me and another guy a little bit older than me, we said, we're not afraid. The thing about it is I exercise, I eat right. I take some supplements that are already known to help help your body fight an invasive virus. Quercetin, zinc, vitamin D. I got a good supplemental vitamin that's heavy on vitamin D. And yes, I do wash my hands thoroughly. Yes, I do wipe things down with antibacterial wipes that are approved by the CDC that kills this stuff. I'm not stupid. I don't want it. But I also know that if I do get it, that my body is going to fight it. The odds of me having long-term effects from it or dying from it are very, 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 very slim. All you have to do is look at the statistics. So, personally, I say let the people who really do need it, people who are 60 and over, people who actually die from it, step right in front of me. Go ahead and get it. You know, if you feel you need to get it, by all means, go get it. But personally, I want to wait just a little bit to see what kind of long-term effects we have on this. Eventually, yeah, I'll probably get it unless they come out with something that is like a Theraflu thing that says, you know, which I think they're all on the cusp of already. I suspect that there is a financial battle raging between big pharmaceutical companies, and people have said, hey, we've got these preventatives that actually, you know, if you get it, make it really, really less severe and you get over it. That's already been kind of proven, and I'm not going to get into that because it's a political hot button. But the things I'm taking are very similar to some of these medicines, and they're over the counter, and you can get them from get them from just about any store. And if I get them, my body's ramped up. It's ready to rock and roll. It's going to fight it. And that's one of the best things you can do. Yeah, maybe someday I'll get it. Well, I'm Alan Ray. This has been I Do This for Free, the refreshingly non-political podcast about everything else. Hope you've had a great week. Hope you're going into a great weekend. Stay warm. Remember, get that bug-out bag, get that pack in your car. Go online, figure out what you really need. Figure out the stuff you got to have to stay warm if you're in one of these areas. Even if you're not, it is wintertime, and we've already seen even Florida is getting stuff in the 20s and 30 degrees at night. You got to have something to keep you warm in your vehicle in case you break down, in case you get stranded, in case you're even in a traffic jam. God bless you. Stay tuned all week. Keep it right here on KLRN Radio, America's Podcast Network. And we'll talk again soon.